welcome back to another episode of A Path Unfolding. I'm your host, Jesse Brede. I'm here today with none other than edIT from the Glitch Mob. Ed, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, dude, my pleasure. You know, I've never been shy to tell you I'm a huge fan. Your music has inspired me for many, many years. So just, yeah, man, thank you for sharing an hour with me. And I just wanted to bring you on, kind of talk about where you're at right now. We can go back in time, talk about a little bit about the Glitch Mob and those adventures and journeys, which are just epic. And I think one of the things that I've been most inspired by you of late is these episodes cooking with edIT, your giant modular, bringing all the homies in and you guys just playing. And I think that's so interesting to just put that out and just play and have fun. So yeah, I would love to know a little bit about how that evolved over time and where that came from. And then specifically what I've seen you over the years of always kind of bringing the tactile experience of playing music live into your shows. So I always thought that was really, really important. I could see that was important to you.
Yeah. Cooking with edIT was basically, it was kind of birthed out of the necessity to share music in a much faster way. You know what I mean? I think the modern day and age of, finishing a song and then, getting it through DSPs to get up on Spotify, that whole model of sharing music, obviously it's a necessary evil, but for me personally, it's just way too slow. You know what I mean? Oftentimes, by the time the music finally comes out, that's a song that I've made 6, 8, maybe even 12 months prior. So the excitement for it, by and large, mostly has gone. If it's a Glitch Mob tune, Josh and I, we've rinsed that tune out for 6 months straight. You know what I mean? And then finally, the audience gets to hear it as a new song. And for us, it's an old song. We're already moved on to, basically what's going to come out 8 to 12 months later. So that whole, kind of infrastructure for sharing music, I just find it to be really arcane in general. I think it's necessary. I mean, obviously, that is, kind of Spotify, Apple Music. Those are the primary ways that people consume music these days. But to me, it's just not a really inspiring way to share music. So cooking with edIT really came out of the necessity of really wanting to make music and literally that day share it with the world, with the internet. And that's also kind of the spirit of making music on hardware and making music on the modular in particular, is that it's not necessarily meant to be this perfect, chiseled, refined diamond. It's very rough and raw around the edges. And, that rawness is actually what I'm trying to capture. I find that when I make music on the computer in Ableton, my brain instantly already goes to all of these, techniques that I've just used over the year. My engineering brain kicks in and it's oh, I need to do this thing. Let me grab my rack for that. Let me make sure this thing is sidechain for this. Let me make sure this frequency is perfectly cut out. The options are limitless inside of a computer, whichever DAW you end up using, and the way that you express your creative muscle with the computer is completely different than making music with your hands with hardware. So that was also kind of the point with getting cooking with edIT going, and the genesis of it really happened, I believe it was top of 2023, basically in hardware circles. If you're into making music on hardware synths, modular, all that kind of stuff, there's this hashtag that goes around in January. It's called hashtag Jamuary is what it's called. And it's almost like this this big month-long holiday that everybody that makes hardware kind of actively participates in on the internet. And, you basically share your jams and your creations through primarily social media, And what happened to me was basically, I believe I got COVID I can't remember if it was my first time or my second time, but I was basically sick for the majority of January, and I was locked up in my loft in the Arts District in downtown Los Angeles, and literally all I could really do was jam on the rig. And at the end of January, and when I wasn't sick anymore, I basically uploaded a ton of the videos from that January, and the floodgates just kind of opened from there. Like, a bunch of homies, musician homies, DJ homies started hitting me up, and people wanted to come by to play and to cook on the modular. And that's where Cooking with Edit was kind of birthed from, whether they be local DJs and musicians from Los Angeles and, obviously, in underground bass music culture, underground rave culture, or international DJs and musicians. Whenever they were in town, they would roll through my crib, and it became a thing. And I kind of redesigned the modular rig to basically be designed to cook up with other musicians. It was designed around speed and efficiency, and literally, I could kind of get someone in the loft and, just kind of hypnotize them with the rig, and next thing you know, we'd be cooking on it, and I'd be recording video and audio on it, and then uploading it to the internet that night. And it was a beautiful moment in time. My loft in the Arts District, it kind of became this central hub for musicians to roll through and come hang out. I lived across the street from a Furry Ramen, Gorilla Tacos, Pizzanista. They were all around the corner. So it was kind of this good central zone where musicians knew that they could come, they could kick it. We could cook up on the modular. We could go get good food, or, go hit a bar or something like that. And normally they would be playing at some sort of underground warehouse rave that was really close to my house. 1720 was a 5-minute Uber. That's where all the System Era parties happen. There were a few other warehouses that were close by that, like, Brownies Lemonade, Used, Lick and Dip, like all those underground rave promoters, 6 a.m. Work, I Love Incognito. All those warehouses were like right around, like, where I lived. You could pretty much walk or lime from my loft to all those raves. Scenario, Daddy Kev's party, same thing. It was like 5-minute Uber from my loft and stuff. So my loft just kind of became this central hub, and like if you were an out of town DJ or musician coming into Los Angeles, then coming to cook and do a Cooking with Edit kind of became a thing. And it was a dope moment in time, man.
I think it's so smart that it sounds like you stumbled upon it, but what you started with is just kind of responding to the frustrations of the modern day music industry and what you've been doing for so long of, hey, let's perfect these songs, and they're carved in stone, and put them out, and like that whole process. So like, hey, what if it was just easy? What if we just did it like this? What if we just had fun and just got raw? And, that's why you've always inspired me. I always feel like you are blazing a trail for yourself, like answering your own questions, scratching your own itches. And then a lot of people look around and go, wow, that's really smart. Like that's a great way to do that. Cause we are in this time where people are looking for short form content on the internet, Instagram, TikTok, yada, yada, yada. And, they still want good content. They still want to see their favorite artists and musicians create. I mean, they still want to be inspired. It's not that they just want to watch, silly videos on the internet. So I think it's really intelligent. It just shows how you can kind of respond to where we're at today, rather than just kind of, maybe some people kind of sit around and cry about it and be mad about it. It's like, hey, let's find a way. Let's find an answer to it. So that's really cool. I think the other part that's really interesting to me is like, interacting with other people, right? Electronic music inherently, there's a lot of DJing, kind of solo acts. You've obviously had this wildly successful band, the Glitch Mob, where you're playing with Justin and Josh, and creating in real time. And obviously when you've played live, the Blade has its limitations of how creative you can be or how real time you can play that. So has that been something that you've been wanting as well? This like real time interaction with musicians, sort of this jam band moment where you're kind of getting in there with people and just going, kind of riffing in the moment with it?
Yeah. Cooking with Edit, the whole premise is that, nothing's pre-planned. It's all improvised live on the spot. And, like I would record, video and audio of the jam for like an hour, maybe like a little bit more. And within that hour, you know, like 50 minutes of it is going to be just complete chaotic garbage. You know what I mean? But it's like those little bits and moments of pure magic that you're looking for. Like in modular, we call it like, you know, you're trying to catch the butterfly, basically, you know, and you can only catch it in that moment. And then after that, like it's gone, because, you know, once you like unplug all the wires and stuff, like, you know, you're never going to be able to get the modular back to the same exact state that it was. So there's always this like idea of impermanence with it. Like it's not like making a track in Ableton. You can save off a file. You can have 50 different versions of your song. You can go back to a previous version that you liked. It's, you know, like cooking with edit. It's like it happens once and the magic's there and it's never going to happen ever again. And to me, that's kind of the beauty of it, especially in this, you know, this modern age that we're living in. I kind of feel like, you know, like what a song is and what music is going to be completely redefined in this current era, this current TikTok era and stuff. And that's what I've been trying to do with Cooking with Edit, and also coming back and rebooting Cooking with Edit as well too, is that, you know, back in the day in the traditional sense, it's like, okay, you know, it's like, I'm going to finish a song, I'm going to release it, I'm going to press it up on CD, I'm going to press it up on vinyl. And then, you know, when iTunes came around and, you know, downloading MP3s, that was just like such a foreign idea. It's like, is this even like real music? It's like you're downloading a digital file, and that became the norm, right? And then when Spotify came along, it was like, is that even real? Does your release even count if it's going on a streaming service, you know? And now that has become the norm. And to me, it's like, you know, what constitutes a song? Does it have to be on Spotify, or can it literally be a 60-minute clip on YouTube Shorts, or a 60-minute clip on TikTok, or yeah, you know, like a 30-second clip on someone's Instagram story of a short little blip of something from something that they're working on. It's all, you know, I guess it's all a way of sharing our creative expression. So that's kind of like what I'm trying to lean into, as opposed to, yeah, you know, be like, you know, salty about the state of like the music industry, really trying to reinvent, you know, my ideas around what it means to share music. So, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of change in the air, just, I mean, for the world, but also for you. You know, Justin recently left the Glitch Mob, I guess not too recent, but Beretta. And then, you know, Josh and you put out the new album, Ctrl Alt Delete, or Ctrl Alt Reality. And, you know, there was a departure from your sound. And I think, again, having studied your career and followed it and been a fan, you guys have always evolved. Each and every album has had a new, you know, take, a new sound, but it's always, you know, through and through the Glitch Mob. You know, I would love to hear a little bit about that transition, and then kind of your transition to Las Vegas, and just kind of where you're at right now with music, and where you know, where you're at in, you know, kind of thinking about like where are you excited about musically, both with yourself and just on the scene and as a whole? Because I think there's a lot of change.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, it's interesting. I've never, I guess me personally, like as an artist, I've never looked at Glitch Mob as like, we have a sound and we need to deliver this sound for the fans. That is the only way it could be. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I'm an artist, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always going to go where the inspiration takes me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So for me, it's like, I don't ever look at it as like we've ever had a sound or anything like that. You know, I think it's just, we've always just been making music, you know, and ultimately at the end of the day, I think like the audience and the fans like always determine what the music means to them. And like, that's completely 100% totally fine. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's also like, I'm not here to, you know, make music for the fans per se, or be an entertainer, you know. And that's something that I've definitely thought about a lot over the years, and something I've spoken to a lot with people close to me is, you know, kind of like art versus commerce, you know what I mean? And I have no problem with people wanting to be entertainers and make money for financial means, or figure out how to make money that sells and, you know, feed the fans and keep them coming back. And that whole entire thing. And, it's like, there's no judgment there whatsoever. Like if that's what you want to do, I think that's great and you should do it, but at the end of the day, it's like, for me, it's, I'm an artist. I'm going to be making art until the day that I die. And, I'm not going to be wanting to make the same record over and over again. On the same token, I have groups that they make the same record over and over again, and I love it. Like, Boards of Canada, it's like they essentially make the same record every single time. And I think that's fantastic. You know what I mean? Like I love listening to their records. That's just not me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think, there wasn't necessarily like any major reason for constantly evolving. We just constantly evolve. I will say the one record where we kind of tried to, I don't know, kind of put on the hat of like, what's the record that we can make that's just going to really serve it up for the Glitch Mob fans, you know what I mean, was See Without Eyes. And I think it's a beautiful record. I think it's an amazing record. Yeah, to some degree, like I think like a lot of the ideas in there, it's, I think it's like Drink the Sea with like Love, Death, Immortality, kind of like modernized, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, we tried that thing, we did it. And, I never want to do that ever again. You know what I mean? Like I constantly want to be evolving as an artist and, kind of riding with the inspiration and where it takes me. And something that I've always been inspired by is old school rave culture, because that's where I come from. You know what I mean? Like I come from that whole like 90s jungle era, Southern California rave culture thing. You know what I mean? And those are sounds that have always inspired me. And you can hear that inspiration in tons of the old Glitch Mob stuff. We've just never fully gone there. So with Ctrl Alt Reality, it was really our opportunity to fully go there, especially with Beretta's departure as well too. I think Josh and I had free reign to like truly just be like, this is what we're feeling and we're going to 100% fully roll with like our version of our love letter to old school warehouse rave culture, like the roots of where rave culture came from. If we could modernize that sound for a modern day sound system, what would that sound like? And that was kind of the inspiration for Ctrl Alt Reality, and then obviously all the people where we currently are. And yeah, man, it's like, I know it's cliche, but change is the only constant, and like, I would hope that we all constantly evolve and change constantly to be the best versions of ourselves, the best versions of ourselves as musicians. And I hope that we never, stay stuck in one place, not moving. Yeah, for me, this transition out to Vegas has been exactly that. You know what I mean? It's been a humongous growth spurt for me on all fronts, extremely challenging as well too, completely life-changing overnight in a way that I did not anticipate or expect whatsoever. And it's really definitely pushed me to the brink. And there's definitely been a lot of extremely low moments, but also a lot of immense growth in the midst of all that. And I think it's exactly what I needed to evolve as a human being. Because I think for a long time being in the Glitch Mob, I think living in Los Angeles, I think I got really comfortable with this life of like, okay, I'm the dude in the Glitch Mob. I live in LA. This is my life. And it's been beautiful and it's been wonderful. But I don't think I was really challenging myself to step up and evolve. And moving out here to Vegas was definitely, like an overnight shock to the system to do exactly that.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, what I gathered in one angle, like one of the benefits of being out there is, I know you're heavy into rock climbing and bouldering and Red Rock Canyon. There's some amazing stuff out there. Was that one of the drivers, or you just wanted a total switch up on the scene, or was it the city that was kind of getting to you? Or, I mean, I guess I want to dig a little deeper. Or was you just ready for a change? That was what made sense for you?
Totally, 100%. Well, it was just like the combination of a lot of big life moments that were happening. First and foremost, my lease was up in April of 2024 in the Arts District, and I got in during COVID prices into the Arts District, which is, it's like one of the bougiest, hipsteriest neighborhoods in all of LA. It's extremely expensive. And like my landlord was like, TikTok influencers are moving down to the Arts District. He's like, I need to, the going rate on a loft of this size is going to be substantial, So yeah, my rent was getting raised by a lot, close to double, essentially. Wow. And it wasn't something that I wanted to be paying for.
Sure.
So that was one of the big things, was my lease was up. And then another thing was that, I mean, I've always lived my life, I'm a professional musician, but I've always kind of like lived my life as like an amateur athlete as well too. And I've always wanted to live in an outdoor sports town. I'm an avid mountain biker, cyclist. Obviously, rock climbing is like my primary outdoor sport as well too. So I wanted to live in a place that could support all those things. Vegas was just this rare place where you can climb all year long. It's very close to an international airport. It's got the best food or Asian food outside of Southern California. It has all the trappings of a major city. So yeah, I was like, a cost of living is way cheaper. There's no income tax. Yeah, when my lease was up, just kind of the timing of life in general, it just kind of led me to say like, all right, it's now or never. You know what I mean? Like I can either stay in LA and move to a much worse place for the same price, or, pay way more rent to live in my same place. Or I could move to Vegas, have a much cheaper cost of living, really dive into like, the rock climbing side of myself, and like really sink a lot of time, effort, and energy into cultivating that side of myself and like really growing as like an outdoor rock climber. And, rock climbing for me, that's my spiritual practice. That's where I go to process all my own stuff. That's my own personal therapist. Like that's like, it's much deeper than just being outdoor and like, climbing sharp rocks and stuff like that. So it's something that I really wanted to cultivate. And, so the timing of life, all those things just kind of lined up all at the same time. And I went for it. And, along with that also came massive life change. I've always been the kind of guy that's always just been like, yeah, fuck it. Like, let's just do this, like no looking back, you know what I mean? Like, let's go big, kind of attitude towards everything. Mm-hmm. And, I took that same approach with this, and, I didn't really think long and hard about it. I was just like, okay, yeah, my lease is up. Like I'm super into rock climbing. Like now's the time, and the second I moved out here, yeah, it was a complete shock. Life as I knew it had changed overnight. Like I left behind my entire musician community in Los Angeles, all my friends of like 20 plus years. Everything changed in an instant overnight. It was very drastic. And like it's honestly taken like a year to finally succumb to the fact that my Los Angeles life is in the past and this is my new life and it's extremely different. And I have two choices. I can either resist it and ruminate on this previous life that I had, or I can embrace it and try to make something of it. So that's what I've been choosing to do.
Wow. I think that's a great lesson. I can identify with that as time marches on, right? We have these identities, these stories of who we are and what we are and what we do makes us, this and that. And especially in the music industry, like time goes by quick and what people are interested in or what they're excited about maybe is not what you're excited about, or what I'm not excited about as a label owner. I'm not really feeling that music that's the flavor of the day or something like that. And it's just interesting to hear you talk about, like, I mean, that sounds like a massive shift to to just process this loss of identity or change of identity and deal with it in a healthy way. It sounds like, you did it in a very healthy way, and I think there's a lot of growth there, right? There's a lot of opportunity to kind of put Humpty Dumpty back together again and take what you like and then see it in a new way and be like, you know what, that way of life or that way of being isn't serving me anymore. Or this part of myself, I really do have a lot of value for. And I think that's powerful. And you're right. You go all in, man. I love that about you. You go big and then probably go big again. And then maybe you go home after that. So, and I've watched you over the years with mountain biking and cycling, and I can see this intensity. And you mentioned the spirituality, and it's cool to hear that from you, because it always felt like there was something deeper going on than just getting out and being physical or just doing it for exercise. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that therapy or that meditation or that spiritual moment of the release or letting go or turning, what I would guess is maybe turning the brain off, right? You're extremely intelligent, hyper analytical, like being able to pick apart things. Any music producer is able to just reverse engineer that sound in their head. And it's kind of hard to turn that off. Is that a little bit of what you're going for when you get out there? Or is there more to it?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest gifts that mountain biking and rock climbing have given me, obviously, they're both dangerous, high adrenaline sports, is that you really need to be present. You really need to be fully locked in the moment. And there are two different kinds of being present. With mountain biking, it's a very interesting sport in that there's no margin of error for you to get something wrong. If you're let's say you're going out to ride this trail and you come across this humongous canyon gap that's 20 feet and you want to jump it, it's you need all the components need to come together. You need to have the belief within yourself, the skill, the know-how, the judging of the speed, the wind, all that kind of stuff. And obviously the guts to do it. And there's no getting that wrong. If you get that wrong, you're going to the hospital. You know what I mean? So it's either you muster up the courage to do it or you don't do it at all. And you just look at it every single time you're on the trail and you think about it and you're like, is today the day that I'm going to send this 20-foot gap or not? You know what I mean? And you're in constant dialogue with that, so it's a really, really interesting sport in that way. And rock climbing is the polar opposite. It requires you to be present in a completely different way. And with rock climbing, you're constantly dealing with failure all the time, and you're failing constantly to literally send once, So literally there's some boulders that I've been working on at my limit, double digit boulders, V10 boulders that, I've probably tried them close to 200 times. And then, close to 200 times, it all comes together. I'll be strong enough, my beta's dialed enough, I'm efficient enough, my skin was good enough on that day, the temperatures were right, everything comes together for you to finally send. So, but you've been failing this entire time. So, it's such an interesting sport in that way, to where it's a sport that really, people overlook the mental toughness aspect of it. You know what I mean? And I think it teaches you so much about resilience, and just the idea of it. If you really break down rock climbing at the end of the day, it's dude, you literally spent 200 tries, over a month climbing a rock, so it's kind of the idea of, finding meaning in what some people might seemingly feel is just completely pointless or mundane.
Yeah.
It's the whole idea of the myth of Sisyphus, that whole kind of idea, and normally when I start my day off rock climbing, I normally I wake up 5:30 in the morning and I'm out into the mountains by out at the crag by 7:30 in the morning oftentimes. Yeah. When you're out there, you have to truly be present. Rock climbing is a very, very dangerous sport. You know what I mean? And especially when you're climbing alone, like I do, you have to be, your mind can't be wandering and in other places. You can't be thinking about your stresses or, whatever, or music world or, I don't know, you know what I mean? Things that are consuming your mind. You have to be right then and there with that boulder and be fully locked in and be fully locked into the process of accepting failure and, constantly telling yourself, just because I haven't sent this doesn't mean I won't, And so rock climbing, it's given me so much. There's been so many metaphors of life tucked into every single send and non-send, that I've experienced in my outdoor rock climbing journey. So yeah, extremely grateful for it. It goes way deeper for me than just a sport where I'm just going to get a good workout.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. I guess a hard story was like my dad was super into rock climbing, and like some of his friends in the 60s would do free climbing, and he lost some of them. So that was crazy. And then I think I was maybe like 8 or 9. I watched him fall and break his wrist and his ankle. That was tough, but I always had a lot of respect for that. And he climbed Yosemite, and I was like, man, that is an intense sport.
It's dangerous, man. You can't be, you got to be fully locked in and fully present. It's like you can't be 20 to 25 feet off the ground alone, like out in the wilderness, and be worrying that you're going to fall off and something bad's going to happen. Like you need to stay locked in and stay calm and just like tell yourself that you got this,
Yeah. Say more about that. When you say locked in, like you're talking about not letting the fear or the doubt creep in, having a healthy respect for it, but not letting that become the reality
well, even when it does, it inherently if you're sending at your limit and you're pumped out of your brains, like climbing a high ball, like you're going to get scared. It's how you deal with that fear in the moment and the relationship you have with it, that I think has so many life lessons tucked into it. Yeah, there have been countless times that I've been sending out my limit. I'm 20 feet off the ground and I'm like, damn, like, I don't think I can do this. But, you can't down climb at that point in time. Like, the only option is to go up. So, you really need to calm down, breathe through it, talk yourself off a ledge, and just tell yourself, it's like, I got this. Like, it's all good. Let's just pause here real quick. Let's take a deep breath. Let's just breathe. Like, I trust in myself enough that I can finish this thing off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think what I find interesting about that is like having real world consequences and having something at stake. Like we live in this very comfortable world, and if you want to, you can just sit in your house and go to your work, come back, make easy breakfast, easy dinner, and then watch some TV and go to bed. And like there's no growth there. Very, very little growth there. And so I think what I hear from you and the lesson is like, if you want to grow and, challenge yourself, right, you got to get out there and kind of find something that does put fear in you. Right. And I've said that before, is like my most memorable moments in life, the things that I look back on and go, wow, like I was always scared leading up to it. I was always had that nervous, like, am I going to do okay? Like we got to prepare. I mean, I think that's a beautiful lesson. And I think that we're in this time where, right, there is a lot of opportunity for different things like this out there for people to get involved with and but this seems like one of the most extreme ones.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I can be up in the mountains, like first thing in the morning, sending something hard and at my limit, when I come back into town, the rest of my day is easy. No matter what the challenge is, no matter if I got to have like some difficult Zoom call with somebody or like whatever, like it's all going to be piece of cake. I was literally like outdoors doing something crazy. Maybe I could have died, but I didn't, you know what I mean? And, nothing's going to be tougher than that.
A very, very stoic view, right? Like if you challenge yourself, like sharpen the steel, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit. You had shared some posts about your friend Yaarrohs, former partner, lover, musical partner, a collaborator, recently passing. First I want to say my condolences. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about grief and, one, the song that you guys made together, Fire Blossom. It's beautiful. I encourage everybody to check it out. I mean, obviously you guys wrote that before her passing, and a lot of her music was very melancholy, but very, very touching for that song to be coupled sort of as your tribute to her. And I can just relate a lot to that. My mother passed away in 2022. And before she did, she had written this song kind of leading up to that. Thank you. And I had managed this woman, Christina Soto, and she kind of helped her with her career. She had done some songs with, some other musical friends of mine and helped her with that. And my mom and her came together and finished this song that she was writing called Heart Comes Home. And then my mom could no longer sing because of the chemotherapy and things like that. We went into the studio and Christina sang it, played it, we orchestrated it and recorded it, and we were able to put it out. And I just I just can relate to that. It's so special to have a piece of art that you helped create with someone that's no longer here, and how healing and how I'll be honest, I can't listen to that song that often. It's super hard for me, but I thought that you were so vulnerable in sharing about your grief and her passing, and just the depth of your love for her. And, I think we're all it's another good lesson to just it's okay to feel these feelings. It's okay to put this out there and be vulnerable with yourself. And it seems like you learned a lot about grief, or you really were kind of digging in and going all into that grief to take the lessons. And so I just wanted to talk about that and see what comes up for you and anything you wanted to share.
Yeah. It's unfortunate she's gone. She was truly a one-on-one special human being, and but she is gone, and we were very, very close. We were like family, and it's still something that I'm processing to this day, and healing from grief, it's not a linear path, but I knew personally for me that I really needed to let myself feel all of the emotions, as opposed to, I guess, suppress it and run from my emotions and run from myself, and that's been the season of life that I've been in, is taking those lessons and I think not trying to run from my own pain and run or hide from myself. Jacqueline's passing has been a big catalyst for all that. Our former partners can sometimes be our greatest teachers, and I'm grateful for all of her lessons.
Thank you, man. Thank you for sharing that. After my mother's passing, she passed at a hospice facility here called Christopher House, and she passed away on May 11th at 11:11 a.m., which was whoa. And even the deacon came in and was like, did you see this? This is pretty intense numerology here. And they offered a grief course after that. And it was really powerful to do some reading. And what you said too, grief is not linear. That took me a while to understand that, how it comes in these waves. And one of the things that I experienced, I try to share with people is I would have just intense waves of sadness for days or weeks. And then I would have this moment of relief. And I'd almost be upset with myself because I was well, why am I not sad today? I should be sad today, or I should be this, or I should be that, or I should be feeling
shitting all over yourself.
I shit it all over myself. And it was, as I start to hear and read, that was one of the first things a lot of people shared. And it was a really good lesson of just take today where it's at, and there's always okay to feel sadness, or light a candle, or say a prayer, or just look at a picture. And then some days are going to be sad and some days aren't. And it's just not within your control. And I felt that was really interesting, how our minds are not in control of these things. We have these hearts and this love and this interconnection or this just connection to the world. And it's just flowing through us. And it just really brought me closer. And the more that I experienced the pain for the loss of my mother, the more I realized that was the depth of my love for her. And so it just became, I started to truly be grateful for that pain. And what you said, there were times where I wanted to run away and numb out and just do whatever I could and not feel those feelings. And as I kind of learned to reframe that, and be grateful for that lessons, and just be grateful for the time that we had, and for the pain and the lessons that came with that pain, and the understanding of like the ephemeral temporal essence of life, like you were talking with the modular in that song. It's just, you take it for what it is in this moment, in this day, and like drink it all in, drink the sea as much as you can, get as much as you can, and then let it go and let it flow back out. And it's just been a powerful lesson. And I was very lucky in my life to like not really have lost anybody up until that point. So I like lost my biggest fan and my biggest friend and my mother, all in kind of one shot. And so, it was just interesting to like not have had a lot of loss before that too, and then have like sort of what I thought was the biggest. So yeah, I just want to thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable, and like leading with your actions, just like you do with blazing a trail with your music. You like kind of, I think, just showing in this time of our lives in this season, hey, this is how I'm doing it, and letting people see, hey, that's really great to just show up.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing your story too.
Thanks, man. I don't know if you know, but Josh gave me this tattoo.
Awesome.
And him and I came up with this idea. Like he had that, and when I was a teenager in high school, I like learned about the law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. And when I would like watch a match be lit, I think my chemistry teacher did that, and I was like, that's like life. Yeah, there you go. Josh put that on?
No.
Oh, this is a different one?
I am covered in his tattoos though. Yeah, I will be covered in his tattoos for the rest of my life as well too.
And I took from that the lesson of like our lives burn bright. And then for me, I just thought of the soul of the energies, like it dissipates back into the stars. And so that the little stars there. So yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like a lot of change, a lot of growth. I'm excited to see kind of what's next for you musically. I'm always a fan. I was, excited that you had a new solo album, and you mentioned All the People, and I think we should talk about that too. Is you've launched your own label with Josh, and I'm excited for that because I think you guys are obviously fantastic tastemakers, and I'm just curious for what are you excited about coming up next for both your personal projects, the Glitch Mob, the label, anything you want to share there?
Yeah, we got a lot of things cooking in the pipeline. We've had a mellower summer this year because Josh and I have actually been scoring a video game, and we've been kind of like on the books for that until kind of the start of fall, but I think it's actually going to get postponed even further into that. And so kind of our touring season is not going to kick in until Q4 basically. But yeah, we got a big European tour planned and stateside tour as well too. A lot of things cooking with All the People. We've got another album dropping pretty soon that's essentially kind of like a compilation of like all of like the rave singles like we've been putting out for the past year and a half, along with like a new one as well too. And All the People, it's been great, and it's been something that we're constantly cultivating, you know what I mean? It's something that we wanted to create to give back to the culture, for a long time in, the Drink the Sea, Love, Death, Immortality era of Glitch Mob. It's like Glitch Mob was like one of those acts that kind of existed on its own island, and it was not really part of any scene or any culture at all. We were just kind of, like we were just one of those artists that just kind of existed on our own, and there's pros and cons to that, obviously. I think the pros are obviously, it's like you become known for what you do, and like, your sound and what you do kind of becomes like a little bit more evergreen. But as a result, like there's a big lack of community. There's basically no community. Like you're just out there doing your own thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there's no scene for it or nothing. There's, no real opportunity to bring others along with you. You know what I mean? So All the People was designed to do exactly that. You know what I mean? It was, to give a home for, kind of this whole like rave revival sound that has like been coming back since the pandemic, and that's also constantly evolving, like whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it like, rave revival or like, kind of like underground club or like underground rave music, like whatever it is, you know, it's like kind of all these sounds of warehouse rave culture have been making a resurgence as like a counterpoint to the mainstream EDM conversation. You know what I mean? And there just wasn't a label in the United States that really wholeheartedly supported that. Like there's tons of labels like out in Europe and the UK that support that, you know, obviously Shirelles Hoover Sound, you know, Club Glow, you know what I mean? Like Denim Audio, L Major and all those guys. Tons of labels out there that support this, Sound Hessel Audio, you know, all that kind of stuff, RNS. But stateside, there just wasn't really a label that was like a home for this kind of stuff. So yeah, Josh and I, yeah, we created it. And along with our 360 All the People parties, you know, it's kind of all one thing. It is a label, but it also is like, you know, a party experience as well too. And, you know, the 360 parties are something that like we've been like heavily curating and cultivating since the lockdown ended. And yeah, it's something that we're continuing to cultivate all through this year and excited to bring that over to Europe as well too.
Nice. Yeah, I actually like very luckily got to open up for you guys in Austin. It was like first of four. You had Angel and
that was a great one, man. That was like one of the better ones for sure.
Yeah, good energy, great room. I mean, shout out to Andrew and Kelly at the Concourse Project who really
killer
like
venue,
stepped
man.
up and reconfigured the whole venue for you guys.
Yeah, and was still able to kind of like keep like an intimate warehouse vibe.
Yep.
But obviously they've got like one of the nicest rooms in the entire country and, you know, one of the most banging sound systems in the entire country as well too. So it's like, you know, it was amazing because it's like, yeah, like we're really, really picky on like how all the people parties are curated. And oftentimes like, you know, we have to kind of try and mold all the people experience just like out of like a weird lump of Play-Doh that the venue gives us. You know, oftentimes the venue is not at all set up for what we're trying to present, you know, to the people that are coming. But Josh and I are very hands-on with it. We're like on tech calls with all the venues before we go play. You know, it's like, how much experience have you guys had doing 360 parties? Like, what is your sound system? How is this going to be set up? Is it going to be more like a 270 or true 360? Like, we ask all the questions to try to like really ensure bringing that like intimate 360 experience every single time. So something we're really big on.
Yeah. I'd say somebody that you guys put me on to more heavily. Like I had worked with her at Lightning in a Bottle, but Anna Morgan.
Yeah.
Was someone, and I feel like
absolute legend, one of the baddest DJs around.
Yeah, she
Every
is.
opportunity we get to play with her, we're blessed. Yeah. Amazing human being, killer DJ, like, you know, incredible. It's amazing what she's done for the culture and what she represents.
Yeah. Her voice is strong. I really love like just to be around her. Like she's just infectious and like makes me want to be a better person. I'm like, man, I'm not doing enough. I need to get out there and do some more. I love the name of the album, or sorry, the label too. All the People, very, you know, obviously inclusive. And I'm curious, like, what do you think? Why do you think there wasn't more or wasn't a label yet? What do you think the difference is between what's happening in Europe? I'm probably a little like don't have quite enough knowledge about this too. Like what do you think the gap is? And like, is it more prevalent to have those underground parties in Europe? And like, obviously you have mentioned warehouse parties in LA. I'm not seeing a ton of those in Austin or other countries or other cities or some, but it's like, it seems like LA is moving more and more and more that direction. And it like you said, is the counterpoint to these big clubs and these, you know, they just want to sell bottle service kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, dance music culture in general, electronic music culture in the United States is years behind what it is in Europe. Europe is, in my opinion, like dance music culture is just so much more woven into the fabric of their lives. It's been around for way longer. The sound is like far more sophisticated out there. You know, the lineups that they have out there, it's like those lineups would never sell tickets in a million years out here, unfortunately, you know, and just the way that the laws with how venues work out there, you know, it's completely different. You know, in the United States, the majority of venues, they shut down before 2, you know, it's like everything revolves around liquor laws and stuff like that. And like out in Europe, it's not the case. You know, it's like you have places in Berlin where like the club's open for 4 days straight. You know what I mean? So dance music culture is just a completely different thing. And raving in America, it's literally in its infancy. And I've been saying this forever, you know, because we've been going over to play in Europe forever. And there's been all these years where we've been like, dude, if we just lived out here in Europe, it's like, this would just be like a whole different ball game for us. Like I feel like we'd truly be, you know, saying what we would want to be saying to the people that we would want to be saying it to, you know what I mean? But we're Americans and we live in America, and, you know, it's just a whole different ballgame out here. You know, it's like dance music culture is literally in the first inning out here. And out in Europe, it's like, that's not the case at all. It's like, you know, yeah, the sound is, there's a lot more room for many more different sounds to be accepted and heard, especially things that are more left of center and more obscure, you know? And that's just not the case in America. It's like, if you're not doing electronic music or dance music on a high level, it's really hard to cut it out here, man. You know, it's like, it's really hard for left-leaning sounds and more obscure sounds to gain traction and for those artists to actually make a living. Out in Europe, it's like, you know, you could be an experimental, you know, dub techno artist, and you know, you could have part of your income subsidized by the European government and just be able to prove that, you know, you're a musician and you're an artist and you play X amount of shows a year, and they'll subsidize some of your income, and cost of living is cheap enough out there to where you could survive, you know, with the little stipend from the government, and also going out and playing like a few shows a year, putting out some releases per year. The government subsidizes a bunch of the record labels out there, gives them money to put out music. That's why the quality of the music is, in my opinion, it's just so much more vast out there. Whether it's good or bad, that's just a judgment, but it's much more inclusive for non-mainstream dance music to have a voice out there. Whereas in the United States, that's not the case at all. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, it's like if you're not an artist where you're worth 1,000 tickets or more, like life's going to be kind of tough for you. Out here in the States. It's going to be hard to make a living being a musician. And as a result, I think a lot of very talented artists, they just throw in the towel. They're like, it's too hard. You know, it's like, I'll just go get a tech job or something like that, you know? So yeah, that's essentially why All the People was birthed. And I'm not claiming to say that, like, you know, we're going to make millionaires out of the artists that we sign, but at least kind of having a place and a home where people can release their music, I believe is a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Yeah, it's got to start somewhere. And again, I mean, you guys are tastemakers. You've earned people's respect, and just by that virtue, you can say, "Hey, check this out. Like this is really interesting stuff. Give it a listen." And yeah, that's exciting. I mean, as a label owner who's been doing this, I think we're on at like 15 years now. It's like it says a lot to put down your, you know, because you guys, like, I think the other thing to go back to is like you were this machine, like the Glitch Mob. Yeah, you guys were doing so much, and I was always hopeful that you would have a label. But you were right. It was like to the sound. There wasn't there weren't many people that could even kind of be in your arena, your ball game. So it's cool. It's just cool to see how things have evolved. And I love that you guys are giving people a home. So I'm excited to hear what's next there. And I'm excited to see this video game. I know that sometimes those things can take time to see the light of day, but that sounds like a fun project. Yeah. Well, man, you are doing a lot as always. I think the last thing, and we kind of hit on this a little bit, is just like, you know, just how these chapters in our lives change and how we can find who we are in the next chapter. And just, I think that's something that I've been looking at. I just had my birthday yesterday, or, you know, this week.
Happy birthday, my man.
Thank you, man. And it's, you know, they're just numbers, but sometimes it really does kind of hit home. Like, okay, wow, like is this like a whole new chapter in life, like, and reassessing and finding what's important. So I think I can see that you're doing a lot of that work, and I think that hopefully that just inspires other people to take that same journey, that opportunity to look within and grow. Yeah, I mean, any last words, any last anything you want to share?
Yeah, brother. I mean, like, just speaking on what you just said, I was like, the only thing that's a guarantee in life is that at some point we're all going to die. You know what I mean? Memento mori. You know what I mean? So I think it's important to like make the most of the life that we do have. And I think as creatives and as musicians, I think it's like really easy to look at our past wins and accolades and, kind of like judge our accomplishment or try to find validation within that. And the older I get, the more I try to disconnect my ego from that and find validation from within. You know what I mean? Rick Rubin's got this like awesome thing that he talks about in his book. I'm just going to kind of like summarize the main idea, but he's basically saying something along the lines of like, artists and musicians, they're constantly trying to figure out like what their output can do for them. It's like, I will release a song, I will go viral, like blah, blah, like whatever it is, like, trying to find validation in the output. And he's like, that's not the point. He was like, these songs that we release, they're just like bookmarks of moments in time of our life. And that the way that we live our life is the art form. And I just find that to be so profound, you know what I mean? Like, as opposed to getting caught up in like where we've been, like, like I played this big festival or whatever, and now I'm no longer doing that. Or like, like I've had this big record and now I don't, or whatever. Like, if we can like, kind of stop looking at our life as artists as that, kind of like little like, blips of accomplishment along the way, but look at the way that we're living our life in general as the art form itself. And that's how I've been trying to craft my life. It's like music is just one aspect of it, but my spiritual connection to rock climbing and all, like that's poetry in motion to me. You know what I mean? Like it's all jumbled into like, like one big painting that I'm painting on the canvas of life. You know what I mean? And when I think about it in that way, like it really helps me to stay grounded and just believe that, it's the journey, not the destination. I'm still painting.
Yeah.
I'm still painting this painting.
Love that. I like to say like, write the story of your life. And then when I come to these decision moments of like, and I think you were talking about like the full send, like go big. Yeah. I usually choose go big because I want to write this great chapter. And that moment to take the leap is often leads to amazing results. And like you said, it's the story of your life and the other thing is like, I want to encourage people who maybe haven't had all that much success and be like, well, it's easy for you to say, Ed, because you've done all this, but it's so true, right? Like we only have so much time. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. And like, it really is about the journey and showing up. And specifically when it comes to art, we're in this time where I think people are just so hungry and so much need of true connection. I said, like someone was talking about the streaming and what's happening to TV and television and film. And like, there's so much threat to these types of art forms or change. And it's like, if we took away all the comedy and all the music and all the art and all the paintings and all of that, like, what would we have left? Like the artists are what like enrich our lives so much and inspire us and like lead this way of like the beauty of life and how inspiring all of life is. Like you say, someone like paint this landscape, they're trying to communicate like, look at the world, look how beautiful it is. Like, let's take care of this planet. When you hear these sounds, it's like, wow, like we should be so grateful that we have these ears to hear, And so I think I just want to encourage people to take up the art and push hard and go all in and take these lessons from you that you shared, because you have so much wisdom and you are very grounded. You're like, when I'm around you, I feel like, wow, it's like, I think there's this element of like, it's going to be okay. Like there's this like very like centered, calm, strong movement forward. So yeah, man, I just thanks,
brother.
Thank you for sharing all your wisdom, and absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. And man, I wish you all the luck, and I hope to see you soon, man.
Thank you for having me, my man. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be on. It's good to see you, my man. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. All right, brother. Well, lots of love and talk soon.
Sounds good, man.
Bye.